What is going on, everyone? Tim from Tirfon Orbital. So I'd like to go over a pair of installs today in one video. This is for a custom one-off hilt from Kennedy Custom Props. This is a pair of Asoka themed hilts. Each one is based on, loosely based, like a variant of her hilts. There is a main hilt and there is also a shoto hilt. However, what is different about this particular pair is that they do combine to create a staff. And I thought that was a very, very unique way to go about designing this hilt. So Kennedy Custom Props, based out of the UK. Gentleman's name is Adam. I actually have one of Adam's hilts in my personal collection. A couple of Kennedy Custom Props hilts have come across my desk over the years. What I really, really love is watching sabersmiths' technique and application get better and better. Adam's been doing this for a little while, but you can definitely see his progression. So he's definitely somebody to keep an eye out on, to watch out for. He does all of his own in-house machining, so far as I know. So he definitely has his own aesthetic. This is what I love about some of the makers and the sabersmiths in the community. You can tell by looking at them who made them, and I always love that. I love that we put our own maker's mark on things. I try to keep my chassis as unique as I can because I don't want to look like anybody else's, but we also kind of play off one another. So anyhow, it's really cool seeing his aesthetic, and it's very interesting doing installs on his hilts. So what I love about custom one-off hilts, or another thing that I love, is that the process of engineering a chassis. Some of these one-off hilts are not always the same, right? So you've got to roll with the punches and engineer a solution, and that is part of the fun for me, right? So this was no different. Because we have two different hilts, we've got a very small inner diameter, this inch inner diameter in these hilts, and we've got two different lengths. So I wanted to keep the same aesthetic on both chassis, but also, obviously I had to make one smaller than the other to make room for the switch placement and everything else. But I'll go over all that when we do an up and close, right? So let's do that now. Let's come into Fusion, take a look at these chassis. So these are the chassis that I've designed for this hilt. These are variants of a chassis that I've done a couple of months ago. 1-inch chassis, half stacked, I guess you could call it. Proffie board sits here. Battery is around back. So obviously the first thing that you will notice is that there are different sizes. Okay, so the shoto hilt, I had to make the chassis a little bit smaller because of where the switch boxes were on both of these hilts. I needed to go with a removable, and I needed room to put a PCB. So the only way to do that with the smaller hilt was to go with an 18350 battery. So this smaller hilt runs an 18350 removable. We've got a kill switch here. I have two LEDs on the upper and lower section of that kill switch, is green and red. Same with the main hilt. Making our way around back, we do have some greeblies. Proffie boards do sit here. They do slide up underneath a lip to help them secure. With this particular chassis, I did a channel under here and cut out some of these vents in this greebly because I wanted shine through. We've got a 2020 NeoPixel strip that goes all the way down this. We've got LEDs on this one as well, above the kill switch. And that's it. So the bottom, we've got a 22mm speaker from Smuggler's Outpost. I love these speakers. I've said it before in previous videos. They are fantastic. And particularly for this build, because there was such a small amount of inner diameter, 22s were perfect. Okay, so that's it. Nice and simple. Two identical almost chassis for two almost identical hilts. So let's come up top. So here they are. Really, really rad hilts done by Adam at Kennedy Custom Props. So I did forget to mention, Adam also did the etch on both of these hilts. We've got Asoka's logo here, some really, really nice flourishes on that etch. Both of them have that etch pattern as well as Asoka's logo. I actually, I didn't even realize this was here until doing this video. And I don't know if I showcased these in the glam shots, but yeah, he included Asoka's logo in that etch, which I think is a fantastic little bit of detail there. So we've got one replica's switch control boxes. So what I was saying with the chassis, with this, I really could only go up to about the middle of this switch box because I needed to have a PCB in here for a removable chassis. The way that this pommel is set up, it does have like a lip on it, so I only had about this much space to work with on the inside of the hilt. Okay, so yeah, had to engineer something a little different with where this switch box is, but I think that obviously we achieved that and it came out pretty well, right? And the same thing with the smaller hilt. One replica's control box, I can only come up till about here, and this hilt is a little bit shorter, so we went with an 18350 battery. Blade plugs were provided by Kennedy Customs. Really nice, unique, spun blade plugs. Like this is, I know, I actually saw progress pics of him making these blade plugs. So he turns his own brass. I mean, all of this is handmade stuff. Well, handmade on a lathe, right? So we've got two identical blade plugs for each hilt. Let's talk about the chassis really quick. So here are the chassis. Nice and simple. I did a rub and buff pass on this in gunmetal, and same with the smaller chassis. To use your chassis, let's go with the bigger one first. Spring side is your negative. Take the flat part of your battery, rest it in that battery tray.
Surrender or face the consequences.
So this was already on. If you don't hear anything, hit that kill
Where
switch.
is Grand Admiral Thrawn?
And there's that NeoPixel strip in there. So another thing that I neglected to mention, SubBlades are something that I have not been able to wrap my head around with Proffie board for a long time. When I start reading the documentation on how to do SubBlades, it breaks my brain, and I just haven't been able to figure it out until now. Some really helpful folks in the community gave me a hand with programming this SubBlade. So we've got a 15 2020 NeoPixel strip. The first and the 15th Neos have their own separate animation, right? So I've been meaning to learn how to do that forever, right? So now I finally do. So that's, once that main is on, I will be including to the client, I will be including a 18350 battery. Not this one, because this one is mine. Shout out to John from Sabres Forever. He included this with one of my installs that I commissioned him for, one of my blaster installs. But it's the only one I have on hand. So flat part, same thing. Flat part of the battery, spring side down, spring side negative.
Just lurking inside that little mind.
That kill switch was already on.
May the force be with you.
Okay. So once you get both of your batteries in, you're ready to go. So let's start with the main. Initially, these cover techs, another thing, just like handmade or spun by Kennedy Custom Props, is these cover techs. Really nice. So they also serve as the pommel secure. The inner screw on this was loose, obviously, and you turn it with an Allen key. I actually just glued it into this cover tech. That way you can hand crank this to open it, right? To open and loosen the pommel. Take your pommel out. Take your chassis, slide it all the way until it stops. Put your pommel on. I like to make sure that the pommel is all of the way engaged, all the way up. So it's pushing that chassis up into those upper PCBs. And then tighten your cover tech. Now for the next one, the shoto, same thing. Take that cover tech off. Slide your chassis in. pommel back on and tighten it up. All right, and you're ready to go. Let's come down to the bottom here. So, you know, like I mentioned, this kind of stuff, like having like custom-made CoverTech wheels, custom-made like greeblies, all this stuff. This is, you know, this is craftsmanship, in my opinion. It's not easy. It's not easy to make that stuff. I mean, maybe it is with a lathe. I don't know. I don't have a lathe. So, so anyhow, one replica's control boxes. The upper switch is your main. The bottom is your aux. Twist to activate, twist to deactivate on. I am not going to put. You know what? Let's put them together. Let's put them together. I might as well show how that is done as well. So there's a set screw at the bottom of each pommel. Loosen that set screw. There's an insert that comes out. Kennedy Custom Props has also included a coupler. Slide the coupler on and tighten that set screw. And we'll do the same with the other hilt. So here we go. Now you have a staff. All right, let's put some blades in them. Man, I really need to go about getting a demo blade, a new demo blade. So I'm gonna be putting 2 full-length blades in these hilts. So we do have a knurled set screw on both of the hilts. Not a set screw, a knurled thumb screw. It's a very small thumb screw. I am not comfortable with how shallow this is, so I also added a set screw for blade retention. So you want to slide your blade in. You can tighten that brass thumb screw, but I would also tighten this black set screw around back just for extra security. So that's the shoto. Let's put a main in. So with the main, same thing. There is a knurled brass thumb screw, but I also have a set screw inside of this bunny ear brass thing here. This is a very, very tight blade holder. Just so you know, it's super tight to the client. Just make sure that blade is resting on those PCB pins, and then tighten both your knurled thumb screw and that set screw. You're ready to go. So let's get both of them. Let's try not to break anything. Here we go. Those, I'm going to put one of these away. Those 22s sound really good. I just cannot get over how nice they are. So I put the majority of fonts on here are all Asoka.
Meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Are mostly Asoka themed fonts. Let's go back.
Asoka.
I am.
So the majority of the fonts on here are all Asoka themed. There are a couple extras.
I am no Jedi.
What else we got? Commander Asoka. Really nice. Really, really nice hilts. I love that these couple into a staff. I have not yet seen, obviously, we've not seen that with Ahsoka's hilts before, I don't think. So that's it. That was the Kennedy Custom Props Asoka themed variant hilts. Super interesting setup. I love that the 2 of these hilts combine into a staff that's very unique. The only hurdle was the fact that we had such a small inner diameter, but just as long as we have an inch and enough space that we don't have to double, like stack a battery in a board, usually that's doable, right? With Proffie. I don't know that this would have been doable with CFX. So anyhow, to the client, thank you very much for your patience. To the viewers, everybody, thank you so much for your support. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Thanks for watching, everybody.